Hello and a very good evening to you. I'm Lee Brown and you're watching A News. Let's take a look at today's headlines. Tonight, a terrorist incident has been declared in the UK after 2 people were killed at a synagogue. Israel's foreign ministry says all global Sumud flotilla vessels, besides one, have been intercepted. And Russia is a threat to all of us, declares Denmark's Prime Minister at an EU leaders' summit. We begin in the UK, where at least 2 people from the Jewish community have been killed and 4 others have been left seriously injured in a stabbing and car ramming at a synagogue in Manchester. Police say the attack has been declared a terrorist incident with 2 arrests made. Authorities said the incident happened near the Heaton Park Hebrew Congregation Synagogue in Greater Manchester. According to the police, some victims were injured by the vehicle and others have knife wounds. The British Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, says the UK must defeat rising hatred of Jewish people. Further details have come to light with a photo of one of the alleged suspects. Greater Manchester Police have confirmed that its officers shot and killed him. The man, who is believed to be the attacker, appears to be wearing a thick vest with items tied to his waist. Greater Manchester Police says the device, which they feared was an explosive, was not usable. Our UK correspondent is in Manchester with more.
Greater Manchester Police are treating the attack outside the Heaton Park Synagogue here in Manchester as a terrorist incident. A man was shot dead by armed officers after driving a car at members of the public and stabbing 1 man. Counter-terrorism police say there have been 2 arrests made in relation to the incident. They believe they know the attacker's identity, but say it cannot yet be confirmed for safety reasons.
And based on what we know, counter-terrorism policing has declared this as a terrorist incident. Our specialist teams are now leading the investigation into what happened at Heaton Park Hebrew Congregation Synagogue and working closely with Greater Manchester Police. As we do this, those who have been killed and injured are at the forefront of our minds. At Counter-Terrorism Police, we're deploying all of our capabilities in response to what has happened. And we have resources from across our network involved. We will ensure every piece of intelligence and line of inquiry is interrogated.
I can confirm that 2 other individuals have been arrested in connection with this incident, and urgent inquiries are ongoing. We can confirm that 2 members of our Jewish community have sadly died as a result of this attack. Following a rapid response, armed officers from Greater Manchester Police intercepted the offender, and he was fatally shot by officers within 7 minutes of the original call. 4 further people remain in hospital, having suffered a variety of serious injuries, and their treatment is ongoing, and our thoughts are with them and their families.
The incident happened on Yom Kippur, the holiest day in the Jewish calendar, leaving the Jewish community shaken. Prime Minister Keir Starmer has called the attack shocking and deeply disturbing. He cut short a European summit to return to London and chair a Cobram meeting. King Charles has also spoken, saying he and the Queen were deeply shocked and saddened. Manchester is home to Britain's 2nd largest Jewish population, many of them living close to this area in Prestwich. We will continue to monitor the situation here in Manchester and bring you the latest as we get it. Zina Farizadeh, A News, Manchester, United Kingdom.
Alongside the news coming out the UK, 3 men have been arrested in Berlin as suspects of planning attacks on Jewish and Israeli targets in Germany. They faced an investigating judge at the Federal Court of Justice in Karlsruhe. 2 of the men are German citizens and 1 was born in Lebanon. Authorities say the group had been collecting weapons and ammunition since the summer. During the arrest, police found an AK-47, several pistols and a large amount of ammunition. The attacks were believed to have been planned for Hamas, but the group has denied any connection. The arrest took place one day before Yom Kippur, the holiest day in the Jewish calendar. German prosecutors say the investigation is still ongoing. We now turn our attention to the Middle East as Israel's military has intercepted a flotilla carrying aid to Gaza, saying the boats were nearing an active combat zone. But the activists on board insist they've been detained illegally. As of now, Israel's foreign ministry says all global Sumud flotilla vessels, besides one, have been intercepted.
Activists on board at least 2 boats of the global Sumud flotilla heading for Gaza can be seen raising their hands in the air, with the camera footage saying the boats were surrounded by the Israel Defense Forces. The international flotilla, comprising of around 40 civilian vessels, is on its way to the Strip to deliver medicine and food to Gaza. The Israeli Navy ordered a couple of them to change course. They then detained the people on board.
This is the Israeli Navy. You are approaching a blockaded zone. If you wish to deliver aid to Gaza, you may do so through the established channels.
The activists called the actions of the Israeli military illegal, claiming they were intercepted in international waters.
They're about to arrive at one of the vessels. We will be in contact. Also, this interception is in international waters. This is totally illegal and violates international agreements and law.
The Israeli military says the passengers are safe and healthy, noting in particular Swedish climate campaigner Greta Thunberg. Officials say they've been transferred to an Israeli port, adding that the interception took place because the boats were approaching an active combat zone. Organisers say they had hoped to reach the Strip on the 2nd of October had they not been intercepted. The flotilla is the latest seaborne attempt to break Israel's blockade of Gaza, much of which has been devastated by almost 2 years of war.
Looking to European defence, leaders have gathered in Copenhagen for the European Political Community Summit to discuss security, energy and the future of cooperation on the continent. Our Andy Mioch has more from the venue.
The sessions of the European Political Community Summit here in Copenhagen have wrapped up, at least according to the official schedule. The plenary saw a lot of talk on the war in Ukraine. The host, Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen, said Russia will not stop until it is forced to do so and called for more weapons and ammunition deliveries to Kyiv. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky spoke on the recent drone incidents across Europe, saying that signals that Russia feels bold enough to escalate the war. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who had to leave early because of the attack at a synagogue in Manchester, called for further sanctions on Russia's energy and its so-called shadow fleet.
Peace with Russia can only be achieved through strength. We have to strengthen Ukraine and weaken Russia with more sanctions. We have to be able to finance the armed forces in Ukraine. All of us have to deliver more weapons, more ammunition, and we have to do it faster. Nowhere it will make a greater impact for European security than at the front lines in Ukraine.
We've seen in recent weeks the appetite that Putin has to not only rain down on Ukraine, but also to take action and to interfere right across Europe in many different ways, whether that's in relation to our airspace, whether it's cyber or other attacks that have been going on. They are unrelenting and they show an appetite to continue this, and we must fight it with everything that we have.
The talks at the EPC summit continued behind closed doors. What we can tell you is that the progress in the peace process between Azerbaijan and Armenia was widely welcomed. Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev met with Armenia's Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan at the sidelines of the summit before meeting the European Council President Antonio Costa and European Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen. The two top European officials congratulated Aliyev on the progress made in the peace agenda between Armenia and Azerbaijan, while Aliyev noted that the two countries have already adapted to living in peace. The three also spoke on their role The Azerbaijani president also met with his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron for talks on bilateral relations. Aliyev met with Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky as well to discuss the humanitarian assistance Baku provided Kyiv, while energy cooperation was on the agenda of his meeting with Italy's Giorgia Meloni. Azerbaijan plays in European energy security as well as the development of the Middle Corridor, trade route connecting China and Europe. The EPC summit followed Wednesday's informal meeting of the EU27, also here in the Danish capital, where European leaders talked on Ukraine and collective defense. There are discussions on a drone wall on the east of the continent and the possible use of frozen Russian assets as a zero-interest loan to Ukraine will be continued on October 23rd at the next European Council session. From Copenhagen for A News, Andy Mioch.
Well, joining me now to unpack the key developments and the regional implications of this summit is Togrul Valik-Hanli, STEM Analytical Center guest expert from Baku, Azerbaijan. Thank you for joining us, Togrul.
Good evening, thank you.
The EPC is described as an intergovernmental platform. What bearing might that have on the EPC format, have on the South Caucasus' evolving relationship with Europe?
So, from the statements of the European leaders and even a British Prime Minister, it's clear that 7th European Political Community Summit is mainly devoted to the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the security of security landscape of Europe, and alongside with migration affairs and economic development. To make parallel, the summit, which takes place in Copenhagen, Denmark, gains importance within the recent provocation on the Polish-Belarusian border and repeating incidents in the Baltic Sea. And so Europeans' defense, collective defense, or promoting the mechanisms for this issue and defense capabilities, supports to Kiev, funding tools are the topics of agenda for European leaders. Interestingly, that the summit brought together the leaders even from the outside of the European Union, including Switzerland, Georgia, Moldova, Azerbaijan. As you know, for a long time, Russia used its fossil fuels, especially natural gas, as a diplomatic leverage. So for Europe, the South Caucasus region and even Central Asia are crucial in the frame of diversification of energy supplies policy, after which was implemented rapidly after the Russian military aggression against Ukraine, which was launched in 22.
We will get onto that.
To be realistic,
if I may, Togrul, we will get onto that a little bit later. But I do want to ask you, what makes the EPC different from more established institutions like the EU or NATO in dealing with Europe's security and economic challenges?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, the mechanism to promote collective defense and the concept of collective defense are something new for the European Union. And that's why, to be realistic, Brussels is interested in the stability and cooperation with alternative energy providers, and to promote promotion of a common collective defense. It's a feature which distinguishes this summit from the other European initiatives.
Could the latest, looking regionally, could the latest Aliyev-Pashinyan meeting in Copenhagen yield discernible progress on connectivity, particularly?
Yeah, it's an essential step in order to build sustainable peace and development with Azerbaijan, which of course will ensure the sustainable peace and stability in the South Caucasus region. Because even Brussels is interested in this issue.
Staying with the region, do you believe Georgia appeared isolated at the summit?
Georgia should attend at this summit because it's a part of South Caucasus region. It's a transit country for fossil fuels, which are provided to Europe, and it's also the key players for Europe.
Could the next EPC summit in Yerevan provide fresh impetus for progress in the Baku-Yerevan dynamic ahead of Armenia's 2026 elections?
Yeah, it will be. I think it will be a positive step in this regard.
And I just want to point your attention to something slightly different. Montenegro's Prime Minister openly used the summit to push for EU membership. Do these summits provide genuine opportunities for smaller countries to amplify their voices?
Yeah, especially the president of Montenegro expressed his willingness to be the member of European Union. I think for now it's not real. It's not realistic because the European Union is worried about the security landscape more than the membership procedures for now.
And I do want to, you touched on it earlier about defense, but I do want to touch on President Zelensky saying Ukraine is ready to open the first cluster of EU accession negotiations. How significant is this step in concrete terms? Hungary's Prime Minister Orban has voiced opposition. Would Ukraine being in the EU provide protections or escalate tensions with Russia, do you think?
The differences of the opinion in the European Union, especially from the countries like Hungary, which strongly depends on the Russian gas, is some kind of obstacle for establishing the common mechanisms for Europe, because European now should move together against this aggression. And I think it's some kind of test, tests for Europeans.
Well, Togro, I do want to thank you for taking time to speak with us today, but sadly we have run out of time.
Thank you very much.
Now, Russian President Vladimir Putin has accused Europe of blocking peace in Ukraine, saying Western leaders are driving the continent towards militarization. Speaking at the Valdai Discussion Club in Sochi, he said Moscow had no plans to attack NATO, dismissing the idea as impossible to believe. Putin framed the conflict as driven by Europe's actions rather than Moscow's choices. He warned Russia would not tolerate further pressure and said any threat for its security would draw a rapid response. With that, he turned to Europe's military build-up, pointing directly to Germany.
We simply cannot ignore what's happening. We have no right to do so for reasons of our own security. I repeat, our defense and security. Therefore, we are closely monitoring the escalating militarization of Europe. Is this just talk, or is it time for us to take countermeasures? We hear, and you know this, in Germany, for example, they say that the German army should once again be the most powerful in Europe. Well, fine, we're listening carefully, watching. What exactly is meant by that? I think no one doubts that Russia's response will not be long in coming. The response to these threats will be, to put it mildly, very convincing. It's precisely a response. We ourselves have never initiated a military confrontation.
Now, Russian airstrikes have knocked out power to the decommissioned Chernobyl nuclear plant, according to Ukraine's energy ministry. The strikes also hit nearby Chernihiv region, cutting electricity to over 300,000 people. The region's governor announced emergency crews are working to restore power and generators have been sent to hospitals and key sites. Officials warn that even though Chernobyl is not active, the power loss could affect systems that still work to contain radiation. We're following the latest on the US government shutdown, where political tensions in Washington are reaching a boiling point. More than 750,000 federal employees are caught in the crossfire, either working without pay or furloughed. As the shutdown enters its third day, the White House is warning that layoffs could come within days if no deal is reached.
The White House has warned that worker layoffs are likely as the government shutdown begins. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said federal agencies are already preparing for cuts. At a joint briefing, Vice President J.D. Vance confirmed that layoffs could happen soon, though no final decisions have been made yet.
We're going to do everything that we can over the coming weeks, if the shutdown lasts that long, to ensure that people get the essential services that they need, despite the fact that Chuck Schumer has shut down the federal government. It's not going to be perfect because we are in a government shutdown. We are going to have to lay some people off if the shutdown continues. We don't like that. We don't necessarily want to do it, but we're going to do what we have to keep the American people's essential services continuing to run.
On day one of the shutdown, signs were posted at the Capitol and the Library of Congress, informing visitors of closures. Around 750,000 federal workers have been told not to report to work. Meanwhile, military troops and Border Patrol agents must stay on duty without pay. The shutdown is costing the government an estimated $400 million each day.
I do not think this will last as long as the longest shutdown, which was the 2018 shutdown that lasted 35 days. And that's for sort of a reason unrelated to politics. In that shutdown, by day 32, 33, you started to see sort of wildcat strikes or sick-outs among certain workers in the government who were sort of crucial, air traffic controllers, TSA employees, and that quickly sort of put a lot of pressure on both sides to end the shutdown when it started to clog up some major airports in the United States. And I don't think any shutdown will ever go that long again, because I think workers in similar situations will see their power and take actions like that.
President Donald Trump blames Democrats, accusing them of causing the shutdown to protect healthcare subsidies. But Democrats argue that Republicans control Congress and the White House and say the responsibility lies with them.
When the Senate Democrats pick this bill up.
With no deal in sight, the situation is growing more serious, leaving federal workers and many Americans facing an uncertain future.
Our US correspondent Ube Shabanda has more from Washington, D.C.
The U.S. federal shutdown continues for yet another day, as neither Democrats nor Republicans have indicated that they are ready for a compromise. President Trump on Thursday confirmed that he is using the opportunity to meet with the powerful Office of Management and Budget Director to look over potentially permanent cuts in the federal workforce. Well over 100,000 federal employees have been placed on furlough, and thousands more are considered essential employees, so they are at work but not receiving a paycheck, and that does include members of the armed services. Earlier on Thursday, the spokeswoman for the White House, Caroline Leavitt, told reporters that the White House continues to pin the blame on Chuck Schumer and Democratic Party leaders in the Senate for pushing a resolution that would fund health care for illegal migrants, something that is a non-starter for this Trump administration. There might be a vote for a continuing resolution that would fund the government into the next fiscal year later this week, but that is not confirmed. So we might be facing a shutdown that could last for days, if not weeks, if the Democrats do not agree to President Trump's budget, which is specifically geared to ensure that billions of dollars are not spent for the health care of illegal migrants that do not pay taxes here in the United States. So the impasse continues. It is impacting a number of federal agencies, including those agencies that provide food service to lower income parts of the population, as well as insurance for hurricane damage. We are coming up to the hurricane season here in the U.S., so a great deal remains at stake. But the signals coming out of the White House on Thursday is that they are holding firm, and they are pushing Democratic Party leaders to agree to a compromise solution so that the federal workforce can come back. But at the same time, President Trump also sending a signal that he is going to use this opportunity to perhaps trim the fat of the federal bureaucracy. And the Office of the Management Budget is also, according to reports here in Washington, looking to use the opportunity to make permanent cuts in the federal workforce. So that might mean tens of thousands more out of work here in the government. And that is part of President Trump's promise to drain the swamp, in his words. Of course, something that the Democratic Party and the opposition here in Washington is firmly against. I'm Ubay Shabander, A News, Washington, D.C.
Turning to Central Asia, Kyrgyzstan's President Sadir Japarov has ordered lawmakers to bring back the death penalty for serious crimes against women and children. The move follows the murder of a teenage girl that has shocked the country. Fariza Kalimozina has more.
Kyrgyz President Sadir Japarov has instructed the government to draft a law that would reintroduce the death penalty. According to President spokesperson Askat Alagozov, the proposal concerns capital punishment for child rape, as well as for rape followed by the killing of women. He said the president believes that crimes against children and women in particular must not go unpunished. The move follows the killing of 17-year-old girl in Isykyl region. She disappeared after setting out to visit a friend, and days later her body was found in the Bum Gorge mountain pass in northern Kyrgyzstan. Investigators say a 41-year-old man from Bishkek picked her up in his car, drove her to an orchard, raped and then killed her. He has admitted to the crime and is being held in custody, and also authorities added that he had previous convictions for robbery and attempted murder. Officials said President Japarov has taken the investigation under his personal supervision. Kyrgyzstan has not carried out an execution since 1998. The death penalty was written out of the constitution in 2006 and replaced by life imprisonment a year later. An effort to revive it in 2023 stalled in parliament, and officials now emphasize that any new death sentence would only be enforced once all appeals have been exhausted. The debate comes against the backdrop of widespread concerns over women's safety. According to the Women, Peace and Security Index, Kyrgyzstan was ranked the most dangerous country for women in Central Asia in both 2021 and 2023. Fariza Kalimozina, Almaty, A News.
Turkey is preparing for a major digital leap forward. The government has announced that the nationwide rollout of 5G technology is entering its final phase. Officials say this transition will not only deliver faster internet speeds, but also lay the foundation for a smarter and more reliable digital ecosystem.
Preparations for 5G technology across Turkey are nearly complete. The Transport and Infrastructure Minister Abdulkadir Uraloğlu says the official tender is set to take place on the 16th of October in Ankara. The minister explained that 5G is seen not just as a new generation of mobile connectivity, but as a central pillar of the country's digital transformation. Authorities believe the technology will support smarter cities, Industry 4.0 applications, healthcare innovation and self-driving vehicles, thanks to its high-speed, low latency and broad connection capacity. Turkey is also looking beyond 5G. The government says it's already secured patents in the field of 6G technology, aiming to position the country as a future leader in next-generation communications. Domestic production is a key part of this plan. Under the end-to-end national 5G project, Turkey will manufacture its own base stations and core network components. New regulations will require up to 60% domestically produced product content and up to 30% of homegrown communications products, with the goal of reducing foreign dependence and strengthening the national economy. Officials highlight that the rollout of 5G will play a vital role in achieving sustainable development goals, while enhancing competitiveness in the global market.
Iran and Pakistan have agreed to exchange intelligence to combat drug trafficking networks, particularly across their shared border. The head of Iran's anti-narcotics police and his counterpart met in Islamabad to discuss bilateral cooperation.
Combating drug trafficking networks at the border between Iran and Pakistan has always been challenging, particularly because of the geographical location, according to the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. Iran also borders Afghanistan, the world's largest illicit opium producer. So Iran's eastern frontier has become a major transit path for illegal substances. Because of this challenge, Iran says it has built one of the strongest counter-narcotics enforcement capabilities in the region. Tehran says it has seized 74% of the world's opium and 25% of the world's heroin and morphine in 2012, according to the UN World Drug Report of 2014. And now, the Iranian and Pakistani anti-narcotics chiefs have agreed to enhance intelligence sharing to identify and fight drug trafficking networks and to boost border coordination. According to the IRNA news agency, Brigadier General Iraj Kakavand, head of Iran's anti-narcotics police, met the Major General Abdul Mueid, the ANF commander, during a visit to the force's headquarters in Islamabad on Tuesday. They both agreed to further information exchange to neutralize drug trafficking networks, take joint operational measures to combat cross-border drug trafficking, and overcome challenges to prevent drug smuggling. The meeting comes as Iran says it spends millions of dollars annually on border control, including for construction of expensive barriers along its border with Afghanistan and Pakistan. More than 3,700 Iranian law enforcement officials have been killed, and more than 12,000 have been maimed in counter-narcotics operations over the last 3 decades, according to the UN Office on Drugs and Crime. Touraj Shiralilu, Tehran, A-News TV.
Now, Pakistan is seeing a fast rise in solar-powered farming as growers look for cheaper irrigation options. But experts warn this rapid shift is adding new pressure to already falling groundwater levels.
Farmers in Pakistan are rapidly shifting to solar power to run irrigation pumps. The change is cutting costs but increasing pressure on groundwater in Punjab province. About 400,000 tube wells have moved from grid power to solar. Another 250,000 have been added since 2023. In total, around 650,000 tube wells now run on solar energy. This shift has reduced farm electricity use by 45%. Farmers are irrigating more often and growing more rice. Rice fields increased by 30% between 2023 and 2025. But as a result, the water tables are falling fast. According to the officials, 10 cities face serious water depletion. The government is now launching aquifer recharge projects at more than 40 sites and restoring old irrigation systems.
हमें इस पे स्पेशली जो ध्यान देना है वो वाटर क्वालिटी पे है कि what we are injecting in the aquifer that quality must be equal to the drinking water quality. क्योंकि अगर आपने एक polluted water एक रेन अपना रोड्स से आपने कैच करके उसी को ही इनऑर्गेनिक मैटर्स को और उसमें जिस सारी बायो हैं अपनी इम्प्योरिटीज़ हैं वो सारी की सारी अगर आपने इंजेक्ट कर दी अपने एक्विफर में तो आने वाली नस्लें फिर इसका खुमियाजा भुगतेंगी.
Farmers say solar helps them save money and avoid fuel costs.
It keeps my costs low because it runs without diesel and keeps my water supply running smoothly. Over on that side, we would use diesel.
Some say they're making large profits from the switch.
In 4 years, I have made a profit of between $7,000 and $8,000. Even if it is $177 per month, it is around $2,000 per year. It is about $7,000 to $8,000 over 4 years.
Officials warn that without control, solar expansion could worsen Punjab's water crisis.
Now, Armenia's parliament has endorsed a US-brokered peace process with Azerbaijan in an emergency session. The statement reaffirms commitments signed in Washington on August 8th by the leaders of Armenia, Azerbaijan and the United States, including a framework peace treaty and recognition of borders. Lawmakers welcome the Trump Road for International Peace and Prosperity initiative and urge both countries to avoid rhetoric that could fuel fresh tensions. In Tbilisi and across Georgia, voters head to the polls this Saturday to elect mayors and municipal councils, but the stakes are much higher than local governance. The public mood is deeply polarized, and the ruling Georgian Dream Party has framed the vote as a choice between independence and what it calls foreign interference. Our correspondent Nini Nikolashvili reports from Tbilisi.
In Tbilisi and across Georgia, voters will be choosing mayors and municipal councils this Saturday, but the stakes are much larger than City Hall, and the public mood is polarized. The ruling Georgian Dream Party has framed the election as a choice between independence and what it calls foreign interference. However, opposition parties and civic groups argue that Georgian Dream has hollowed out democracy, tightened control over the courts, the media and civil society, and is steering the country away from Europe and close to Moscow. Supporters of the government highlight stability and sovereignty, insisting that Georgian Dream has protected Georgia from outside meddling. Critics warned that the very essence of democracy is on the line, pointing to the shrinking space for dissent and the refusal to create conditions for fair competition. Meanwhile, abroad, the European Union and the United States have voiced concern over Georgia's democratic backsliding, and the Council of Europe is preparing a debate on the country's political crisis. And although the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe was formally invited, the invitation came only a month before the vote, too late to mount a meaningful observation mission. The results matter not only for Georgia, but also for the whole South Caucasus, a region where fragile security and shifting alliances make every political turn significant. The results will decide on whether Georgia remains on a European path or risks drifting into deeper isolation at a time when democracy, sovereignty and regional balance are all in play. Nini Nikolashvili, Tbilisi, A News.
Internet and telecommunication services have finally been restored in Afghanistan after nearly 48 hours of complete shutdown. Our correspondent Tamim Bahis has more from Kabul.
The blackout began suddenly on Monday evening, leaving citizens without access to calls, online services and banking systems. It wasn't until 5 p.m. on Wednesday evening that connections were brought back online. Across the country and beyond, many people expressed relief and joy as they were once again able to communicate with loved ones, resume business activities and access vital services. One resident described it as a huge relief, saying life felt like it had come to a standstill without the internet. The 3-day suspension caused major disruptions nationwide. Flights were affected, banking and money transfers came to a halt, and everyday life was thrown into chaos. Businesses, students and hospitals also faced severe challenges during the outage. So far, authorities in Kabul have not provided any official explanation for why the shutdown was ordered or why services have been restored. For now, relief outweighs the frustration, but questions remain about whether this could happen again. Tamim Bahis in Kabul, A News.
That's all we have for now. From all of us in the studio, thank you for watching and stay tuned to A News.